And naturally, I'm a Tottenham man, obviously. I can reflect back to being a player with and manager of some of the finest players that have ever been in the game.
The place is fantastic, the tradition of this club.
To be the manager of 3 cup-winning teams here, I'm so lucky, it's untrue.
Hotspur America podcast, airing every week during the English Premier League season.
What a glory, glory night at White Hart Lane.
This great and historic football club.
Joyful night down the Tottenham High Road.
Hotspur America, the original US-based podcast dedicated solely to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
Is Gascoigne going to have a crack? He is, you know. Oh, I say! Schoolboy's own stuff.
I hate Arsenal, just hate them.
Oh, what a goal! Unbelievable!
Wow, this is incredible.
We're the Yids in America.
This is there to tap in.
What a fantastic run. He scored!
And it's turned home, Eric Dier.
This is your Hotspur America.
Season 2, Episode 9 of the Hotspur America podcast. Our fearless leader, Ken, is taking a sabbatical. We've got myself and my partner in crime for today, Chairman Simon Dosworth. Chairs, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning indeed. This is unusual for us. Whereas we're typically swilling beer when we record, today not the case. It's coffee and tea for us.
It is. It's way early. Well, it's not that early, but it's early. And yeah, a bit too early for beer, so...
Certainly
Tea will do.
Certainly something new for us. Whereas we, just by way of, I think, our setup, we're typically one of the first podcasts out after, any given week. This time it's the absolute opposite. We have to be the last one out. So our challenge today will be for us to not be redundant or mundane. And, there's some few things that have happened, this week that I think are worthy of talking about. I suppose we should dive right in. We'll talk about Monaco and talk about maybe even more so Swansea. Just general thoughts, and we'll go from there in terms of those performances, Simon.
Yeah, I think we can kind of blend the two together since it's been Monaco's 10 days ago and Swansea was a week ago now. So two draws. I think when we did our predictions, when we had Rob and Julie on, I did predict that 1-1 in Monaco. So. In true Ken style, I'd say have it, although we really should have hung on and won that game. I didn't see it, so I really can't talk a lot about it. Work has kind of taken me away from midweek sightings of our club in Europe. So what were your thoughts on the game, Sam?
I thought we were in control of the whole match. They had a very tall young player. I think he's like, I don't know how tall he was, at least 6'5". And so anything in the air, especially with Kevin Trippier, was giving us fits. So that was really the only thing that I felt like that we were vulnerable. That's actually something that I think all season long we've struggled with to a degree. But certainly, a defender as short as Trippier is against a 6 foot plus tall guy is going to give us some problems. But yeah, I think it was just kind of one of those where it wasn't completely necessary that we win. We should be looking to close out games. I thought we were definitely the better of the two. It was rainy. It was just a weird atmosphere. But I didn't leave that performance, unencouraged. I thought there were things to build on. It was a pretty strong squad, relatively speaking, that certainly compared to what we had lined up versus Arsenal. We took it seriously, so that was good. But I think the real game to focus on of the last two is without question Swansea, and my sort of 10,000 foot overview thoughts is that that was a good football match, first of all, and I thought we played very, very well, and there's lots of good takeaways. Felt like we were the better team, felt like it was unfortunate, but there's lots of different directions that we can go there. Your biggest takeaway coming out of that match?
Biggest takeaway, the fact that we can't finish a side off when we're in the ascendancy, probably because once we'd equalised, we really put them to the sword, but our finishing was, to be fair, a little on the woeful side. I think Townsend had the shot, I believe, that went off Fabianski's legs when he was already diving, and then Ali...
one of his few good shots.
Yeah, and then Ali had the save that I think was going top right-hand corner. But Njai was, to be fair, a little poor. I remember one of his shots going out for a throw-in. And I was kind of scratching my head I think we talked about this before we went on air, at the Dembele for Kane substitution with 9 minutes to go. If we were in the ascendancy, you really need a guy who's itching to put a goal streak together to get in on the action, and to bring on Musa for that. I had my head scratching a little bit.
Yeah, there were two substitutions there. Lamela, off in the 55th, and then Kane off around the 80th. I think the announcer, one of the announcers, agreed with you. He thought, that's a bit odd. That's the player that you want to have on when you need to score to win a match, and to further that. Had he scored, what a confidence builder that might have been. I don't want to question the manager, but that did seem a little odd to me as well. It sounds like you felt the same.
Yeah. Did indeed. However, I think we need to talk about who were the outstanding players. Yeah. And I think man of the match for us has to be Eriksen. It's what we've been missing from him for quite some time. He was busy on the pitch, and to take the 2 free kicks and get the results he got. Probably a little fortunate on the first one. I think everyone would agree that Fabianski was moving to the wrong side, and he was definitely very lead-footed when the cross came in, and arguably could have done better. But the second one was pure quality and pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah, I think there were some stories that this week, or some other players had commented that he sort of practices endlessly on the training ground free kicks, and that Pirlo is one of his idols and who he tries to emulate. What I felt was interesting about him was I finally felt like he was in charge, and maybe a slightly different topic, but when I watched the match the first time, and when I watch it in a group setting, and I don't know whether it's the same with you, I just have a hard time really seeing things. And so, I record it, and I come home, and I probably watched that match more than I've watched any match. And maybe I watched it more because it was just really, really enjoyable. But my point to all this is that I missed how good he was the first go around. Like, I was kind of thinking, like, within the confines of what Ken has been talking about, which is, in fairness to him, I think he's been right, is that, he hasn't been very good. I mean, really, he hasn't since really the spring of last year.
Earlier than that, I'd say.
Maybe so. But he was the general. I mean, his movement was clever. His passing was clever. I mean, he was the proverbial quarterback. I mean, I felt like he was without question, in my mind, very weak defensively. But I'm okay with that with Eriksen. I'm totally fine with that. But it's just interesting how, when you look at a game, I really thought, he just had 2 good free kicks and an empty performance. And boy, was I wrong. He was remarkable. He was remarkable.
We have to remember that Glenda didn't go back and defend much either.
Yeah, and there's no question that Poch's ethos, right, is built on a sound defensive foundation. I mean, that obviously wasn't apparent last year, but our success this year, I think, is bred from that that very strong back four that we have, and so it may allow for that kind of luxury player to maybe not have as great of a defensive focus and ability as some others. And what we've seen all year long, we've talked about this a lot, is this team approach that no player necessarily has to be perfect because there's a guy behind him that knows where he needs to be should the primary defender sort of fall short of his responsibilities. So and maybe that's a good segue. Back four, thoughts, takeaways?
I thought they were strong again, although I think we could probably pick apart some positioning and some performance in Swansea's first goal. It seemed to come from nothing. It came out of their left side of their defence, moved very quickly on that diagonal ball that had Walker scrambling, and when the cross came in, I felt we could have done better. For someone as small as Ayew and with Vertonghen, I think Vertonghen was closest to the ball.
He was.
It just seemed like they just went from one end to the other very quickly and ended up with a goal, and that was not typical of what we've seen so far this season when it's come to our defending. So,
well, let me ask you a quick question about Walker there, because much has been talked about his play against Montero, and particularly there. Is it possible that a defender can actually defend somebody well, yet a winger can just do a very, very good job, and then simultaneously, and a key part of that play was AU's really intelligent movement to sort of get in between Jan and I can't remember who was behind him. I suppose it was Davies. Is it safe? You comfortable saying those things happen?
Yeah, they do, and I'm not going to be overtly critical of Walker. I know the commentators said that he was way too shallow, was closer to the center of play that gave Montero that space, and maybe after that he was sticking a little closer to him, but. Typically, that's what right backs do. They're going to come in a little bit, but it was a very intelligent diagonal ball. It was very Dawson-like, but it found Montero, and he did have probably a bit more time to get into the box to make the cross, and a right-footed cross too. He's actually left. And it came in very, very quickly. And I was just shaking my head that seemed a little ill-disciplined by us. Obviously, we got back into it pretty quickly and shook it off. And, on the balance of play, up until we equalised, you'd probably give Swansea the kudos for how they had done. And they needed, I think, that for their performance so far this season. They needed that confidence.
They're a good team, Simon. I came away from that thinking, well, that's similarly styled. And they've got a very functional team. They can bring a number of elements. They play. I suppose if they have a weakest link, it's probably their back four. But even still, they're a very good, they're a pretty darn good team. I thought, and I thought it was a very good game. Matchups with Montero and Walker made that game really enjoyable to watch. Two good players. I thought when I watched Montero cross that ball, I was like, oh, I'd love to have that, right? How could you not? He was.
And their home record is identical to ours. They're unbeaten at home. They've won 2 and drawn 2. Granted, their away form is pretty poor. They've, I think, lost 2 and drawn 2 on the road. So they're not doing well in that regard. They started off the season well, but they've kind of petered off with no wins in their last 4. While we've kind of done the reverse. We started off slowly and then suddenly. Picked it up, but they beat Newcastle and they beat United before drawing with Everton and us. So
they're going to
had 4. Well, we'll forget Newcastle, but their last 3 matches have been against very strong opposition.
Yeah, they're not going to be anybody's pushover, and I think they should be competitive all throughout the league. That won't be an easy. It wasn't an easy fixture for us, and I thought that was really. I think through our performances. In terms of 90 minutes of play, I think that was probably the best collection of play within a game that we've had. Barring Man's, well, I don't know. It's interesting. Is that better? In terms of, not result, obviously, but in terms of just football, and maybe this is a good segue into, is there a style? Is there a style that's starting to develop?
I think we saw some of that in the Everton game. That was a game where I think. Not just in possession, because we seem to dominate possession every game we play in, but it doesn't always deliver the goods. Sometimes we're just holding the ball, not doing anything with
just
it.
Keeping it. Yeah.
I think anyone would give us credit for possession, but I think it's what you do with it. Everton, I thought we did enough with it to win there, and obviously Howard had one of his more outstanding performances and blanked us. But you're right. I think in the City game, particularly second half. We could see that footprint of what Poch is trying to do, and we saw a lot of that in the Swansea game. I just think we've got to keep that focus, and that's where a young squad will have their opportunities to maintain that concentration for 90 minutes. Very unfortunate for Harry to slice the ball into the net at the front post, and that could happen anywhere.
Yeah.
But you know what? He has been whiffing a little bit. I think he did that in... I can't remember which game it was, but I think it was probably was it Palace? The ball came over from the left, and he whiffed on it right at the far post. He also kind of had a similar situation in the England game yesterday, where the ball hit his standing leg versus his shooting leg. So I'm not going to say he's tired, but I think he's probably focusing so hard maybe overcompensating a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe he was doing that on the own goal. It's like, I got this.